Hello, learners. Welcome to our session today. Remember, we are in our revision series, and today's segment basically will be looking at advanced taxation, and the questions that we'll be handling are from our block model paper. So, in our today's revision, I want us to go straight to the concept of VAT. But the VAT that you're going to handle is not the one that you're used to. Probably, I know all of you, you're always familiar with VAT, where you are required, of course, to prepare your VAT account and determine the VAT payable or refundable. That is important, yes. But for TIF, you're having a concept whereby you're asked to determine the VAT bad debts relief. How will you go about it? That's the concept that I want us, of course, to handle today. So, all through, we are very familiar that anytime you talk of VAT, the whole idea to determine your VAT payable or refundable will always be talking about the concept of our output tax minus our input tax. Yeah, I know these are what we all have in mind, where output tax is always about talking of tax on sales, whereas our input tax is always about tax on purchases. All this we are familiar with. All this we are familiar with. Now, in this case, what if we are required to determine the VAT bad debt relief? How will we go about it? So this is a concept in our model paper, which I want us to handle. And specifically, this is a question I'm sharing with us. Remember, you can get this question just below, of course, this video. You can get the question. So this is what you're told. I believe the question is very visible. Yeah? I believe the question is very visible. So Mwalimu was mentioned. Still, you can get this question just below this video. Here is what you are told, that briefly explain two conditions under which bad debt relief on VAT might be provided. Briefly explain two conditions under which bad debt relief on VAT might be provided. What are these conditions? Are you aware of these conditions? Are you aware of these conditions? So conditions under which we are going to grant our bad debts or relief on VAT, we normally tend to talk of these two conditions. Condition number one, at this point, your debtor must have been declared bankrupt. So condition number one is where a debtor of a taxable person is declared bankrupt. Where a debtor of a taxable person is declared bankrupt. That is the first condition whereby we can always tend to claim for VAT bad debt relief. Condition number two, my good students, it is where the debt of a taxable person remains outstanding. Where the debt of a taxable person remains outstanding for a period of at least 3 years. For a period of at least 3 years. For a period of at least 3 years, but not more than 5 years. But not more than 5 years. You see? So these are the conditions that if at all you are to be granted the VAT bad debt relief, condition number one, we see that your debtor, the debt of a tax payer, must have been declared bankrupt or insolvent, meaning that this person won't pay that value anymore. Or condition number two, you're saying outstanding, this amount must have, this talk about the outstanding amount must be of at least 3 years, but should not be more than 5 years. These are where the debt of a taxable person is outstanding for at least 3 years. but not more than 5 years. So these are two main conditions that we should always have in mind. So after talking of that, we go to the part B of the question, see what you are asked. Part B of the question, my good students, these are what you are told. Part B of the question. Car Limited made sales to Ngumu Limited. Car Limited made sales to Ngumu Limited, as shown below during the month of November 2023. We are given the details below, where we're having date, amount, nature of sales for VAT. So these are what you're told. These are the details given. November, for the month of November, we're having on 5th to 21st. We told Ngumu Limited was wound up on 30th November 2023, by which date the company had paid 5 million to Car Limited in relation to the transaction for the month 2023. Okay? We're told that assume the payment by Ngumu Limited were made in proportion to the nature of sales. Amounts are reported as exclusive of VAT at the rate of 16% where applicable. We are required to determine the bad debt relief due to Car Limited in relation to the above transaction. You see, such case, yes, it is a component of VAT, which we are all in agreement with. But the difference here is you're not asked of the VAT payable, or you're not asked of the VAT refundable. All we are being asked is about us to determine the VAT bad debt relief. So make sure that you have the question. You can, if possible, you can take a screenshot of the question so that we have it, so that we have it, so that you have it. Make sure that you have the question. Mwalimu is handling this question right now. So the first case, whenever you are given such a question, you can see the part where we have a mixture of exempt and, of course, the taxable supplies. So there are those that will be subjected to VAT, and there are those that are not going to be subjected for VAT. So the first thing, given that our values were exclusive, let us determine our total value inclusive of VAT. That will be your first step. And how will you go about it? This is, of course, what will always be required to do on that case. I want us to determine the total values of these items inclusive of VAT. So therefore, these are what, of course, we'll be having. These are what we'll be having. Nature of supply here given. Nature of supply. We have our amount. We have to determine our VAT. Then we have to determine our amount inclusive of VAT. So these are amount inclusive of VAT. Then determine our total value. That is, of course, amount inclusive of VAT. Actually, you can just have it at that point. Total later on. Yeah. So once we have this, identify the nature of supply that we are given. Our task will just be a matter of copy pasting, where in this case, the first point you are given, the standard sales. So we have our standard sales. Standard sales, you can see you are given a value of 4 million. We have the zero rated sales. Zero rated, we are given a value of 400,000. We have a value of exempt sales. Exempt, my good students, you're given 1.2. We are also given standard again, standard cells. We are given 2 million. Standard cells again, you are given 2 million. Then on this case, you're also given zero rated, which you are given 600,000. Then finally, you are given exempt. Exempt, you are given 800,000. Okay, so having our value like that, I need us to determine the VAT on our values. So I can literally remove this question or just to squeeze it here. Let us determine our VAT. Let us determine our VAT on these values given. We start by the first one because our value are exclusive. So I'm having the 4 million times 16, 4 million times 0.16. This should give us 640. I'm getting that. Zero rated, that is 0. We don't have any tax. For standard, 2 million times 0.16, this should give us 320,000. The same value I'd be having 320,000. Zero rated, 0. Exempt, we don't have any. Believing that we are on the same page. Amount inclusive of VAT, therefore, I'll be having 4 million plus 640,000. So this should give us 4640. This should give us 400,000. This should give us exempt 1.2. This should give us 2,320,000. 2,320,000. This should give us a total value of 600 and value of 800,000. The total value, right? If we sum this up, what will we be having? 4640 plus 400,000 plus 1.2 plus 2320 plus 2320 plus 600,000 plus 800,000. So that as at the end of the day, Mwalimu here is getting a total of 12,280,000. So this is the amount that our debtor was owing. Yeah, this is the amount that our debtor was owing us, the total amount that our debtor was owing us. But we are told this person didn't pay the whole amount. Gomu Limited was wound up, meaning that if it was wound up, it ceases to exist. And by that time, that company had only paid us a figure of how much? 5 million. We had only been paid a value of 5 million. So if we had been paid a value of only 5 million, what will we be having? The remainder. So in this case, we do this summary. Let us determine the total standard cells. Let us determine the zero rated cells. Then let us determine the aspect of exempt cells. Okay, so this is what you want to determine. Of the total value, how much did you have as a standard? For standard, we have this, and this. That is what you're having for standard, which will give us a total of how much? 4640 plus 2320 plus 2320. So total standard is giving us 9,280,000. Okay? Zero rated, we are having this and we are having this. So zero rated, that will be 400 plus a value of 800 to give us 1.2. Whereas exempt, I'm having the 800 and 1.2. So 1.2 plus 800, this should give us a value of 2 million. So that if we add the 3 plus 1.2 plus 9280, this should give us the, we are getting, that is 9280 plus 1.2 plus 2 million to give us 12480. And how much are we getting here? Let us see. There could be somewhere where we add, that should be 4640 to start with. 4640 plus 400 plus 1.2 plus 2320 plus 2320 plus 600 plus 800 is giving us 12280. So if at all we had this, we've said in this case I'm having 2320, 4640 plus 4640, 4640. You're getting 9280 plus the zero rated, we're having 400, 400 plus our value, which is 400 plus 600 to give us 1 million, right? So this is 1 million, the zero rated, right? Zero rated is 1 million. So that in this case, you're having the exempt 1.2 plus 800 to give us what? The 2 million. So I think where we had made a mistake was to have 1.2 instead of 1 million, because as at the end of the day, they should tally to that, right? So that this should give us a value of 9280 plus 1 million plus 2 million. This will give us how much? 12080. So out of this, how much were we paid? We were paid, the received amount was only received amount, we were given 5 million. Okay, so that is to say, how much had we not received? The balance that we had not yet received will be a value of 7,280,000. So this is the amount that we had not received. 7,280,000 is a value that we had not yet received. So we want to determine our VAT bad debt, right? We want to determine our bad debt relief. We want to determine VAT bad debt relief. So how will we go about it? Remember, VAT will only be chargeable on the item that were subjected to VAT, which was standard. So we need to determine the proportion of the standard that had not yet been paid. The proportion of the standard sales that had not yet been paid. So how do you determine that proportion? The proportion will be the total standard sales. We've seen it is 9280. Of our total sales, we had a value of 12,280,000. Okay, times how much had we not been paid? We had not been paid the value of 7,280,000. We had not been paid that. So we can agree that the proportion of the standard that had not been paid will be how much? The proportion of the standard that had not yet been paid will be 9280, 12280 times 7280,000. So the proportion of the standard that had not yet been paid will be having the value of 5,501,498. So this is the proportion of the standard that had not yet been paid. Then, what was the VAT on the value? So the VAT on the value we'll be having, because this is inclusive of VAT, so I'll be having 16 of 116 times 5,501,498,000. So that we can agree that therefore my VAT bad debt relief, the one that I can claim as a relief, will be how much? The one that I can claim as a relief, I should be talking of my value times 16 of 116. So the one that you're going to claim as a relief, we should be talking of 758,827. So that is what you're required to do. So remember, yes, these are concept of VAT, but in a way, your tested is to determine the component of what? Bad debt relief. So I wish you guys to check this question very well so that at least you never know, right? It's good to be at least prepared in all angles. And of course, for the purpose of knowledge, it's also very important for us to understand it clearly. So that in our next class, I want us to consider very unique area and very rare cases which of course, I know majority of the students they normally tend to ignore, but you never know, right? We talk about sea and transport, taxation over sea and air transportation, sea and air transport businesses, sea and air. This is what, of course, I'll want us to consider in our next class. So, at that point, guys, thank you so much. Remember, our block revisions are on. Our block revisions are on. So if you have not joined any of our classes for block revision, make that attempt and join our revision classes. So that in the next 2 weeks, you should make a lot of difference. You should make a lot of difference. So at that point, thank you so much. See you in our next class. Bye-bye.